Hello and welcome everyone. In today's video we're bringing you our outing from Two Guns, Arizona. This will be a three-part series, and the first series will be the actual town of Two Guns. It's the one that has the Mountainlion Zoo and the old trading post. Before it was called Two Guns, Arizona, this land was inhabited by the Navajo, the Hopi, and the Apache Indians. There have been artifacts that have been found that have dated back to the year 1050. As white settlers decided to head west, the United States Cavalry in the 1860s ended up gathering up many members of the Navajo tribe and then placed them on a reservation in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. They lived there for at least 4 years. In 1879 to 1880, Billy the Kid and his gang were hiding out in the area that is now Two Guns. They were staying in the ruins of an old stone house that had a corral. As people migrated west, there was a need for supplies, and the Santa Fe Railroad developed their tracks through this area. Upon completion, 4 cowboys robbed the train. At that time consisted of at least $1,000 worth of silver and cash, and they hid that treasure somewhere in the canyon around Two Guns, and to this day has never been found. In 1912, the Old Trails Road went through this area. The switchbacks are still there through the canyon. The first homesteaders in Two Guns was Mr. and Mrs. Daniel Oldsfield, and they opened up a trading post in 1914. In 1917, the historic bridge that is still there to this day was built. In 1920, Earl and Louise Cundiff purchased 320 acres in which they opened up a trading post, a restaurant, and a gas station right off of Old Trails Highway. In 1925, they leased some of their land to Harry Indian Miller, also known as Chief Crazy Thunder. He took over the trading post, constructed the zoo, the Texaco gas station, and the gift shop. Indian Miller also commercialized the Apache Death Cave. I will have a separate video on just the cave alone. Harry Miller was the gentleman who ended up changing the name from Canyon Lodge to Two Guns after a silent film actor. A year after opening up the zoo, Old Trails Road became Route 66. During the same year, Harry Indian Miller and Earl Cundiff got into a disagreement over the lease, and Indian Miller shot Earl Cundiff. Somehow Indian Miller was acquitted, even though he shot a man that was unarmed. Soon after being acquitted, Indian Miller's trading post was robbed of several $100s worth of merchandise. He also was mauled by 2 of his own mountain lions, and then shortly after that he was bitten by a Gila monster, and then his store burnt down. This caused him to leave not only Two Guns, but the state of Arizona. After Indian Miller left, Louise took over the trading post again and she rebuilt it. In 1929, Indian Miller came back and they had a huge dispute over the lease again. This time resulted in $15,000 worth of court fees and lawyer fees for Louise to win her property back. After losing in court, Indian Miller left the state and ended up going and living in New Mexico. In 1940, Route 66 realigned itself to the other side of the canyon. Shortly after, Louise and her new husband constructed a new trading post, gas station, and zoo on the other side of the canyon. After moving the trading post, the zoo, and the station across the canyon, the businesses passed through several hands, but no one could make a profit off of it or keep it open. In the early 1960s, several renovations were made to the trading post, station, and restaurant, but after a few years that endeavor failed as well. The demise of Two Guns happened in 1971 when a wildfire came through there and burnt down several of the structures. Many people believe that this land is cursed since no one has been able to be successful while living there. the old trails road switchbacks that cross the canyon. This would have been how the stagecoaches and horse-drawn wagons would have got across, as well as the early automobiles before the bridge. Here is the National Trails Road / historic Route 66 bridge that started to be constructed in 1915, and it's a Lutton Arch Bridge. Here we have the ruins of Harry Indian Miller's zoo, trading post, and gift shop. I stumbled upon this foundation, and I believe that it might be the Canyon Lodge, but I'm not 100% sure. Here's the trading post that Earl and Louise Cundiff opened when they purchased their land in 1920. Here we have the ruins that are left from the relocated zoo, and Texaco gas station, as well as trading post. Two Guns was one of many tourist stops on Route 66 that offered gas, somewhere to eat, accommodations for the night, souvenirs, and attractions. What set Two Guns apart was the view of the canyon, as well as the zoo that offered people a chance to look at animals from Arizona and the southwestern part of the United States. With the need for people to get from the East Coast to the West Coast, the I-40 was built. Over the years, Two Guns fell to the curse and was unable to become viable or profitable for anybody that lived there. Now it's just a bunch of ruins that sit lonely and abandoned, waiting for curious tourists of the history of Route 66 to stop and pay a visit. As I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a 3-part series, so come back and check out the other 2. If you made it this far and you're into random events, adventures, parks, attractions, let's go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're trying to grow this channel, and it's the quickest and easiest way to do so. We would also like to thank you for watching, and we will see you in our next adventure.